German. He lies over and over again. He's telling stories, but even though he is a cheater, Apollo falls in love with that young co-god of him, and they become best friends in the ancient Greek mythology. That's a really funny story. Well, there are a lot of quotes from ancient Greek literature, and I only want to give you some examples which all deal with friendship. Homer himself, for instance, had written in his Odyssey, "Not inferior to even a brother by birth is an honest friend, kind and sensible in heart." And Sophocles, the great master of tragedy, he wrote, "He who rejects a noble friend pushes away his own life." One of his colleagues, Euripides, wrote, "There's no better remedy than the encouragement by noble friends." So you notice again and again, friendship is esteemed in beautiful words by poets and also by politicians, such as Solon, the pioneer of the Athenian democracy, who wrote in one of his poems, "Do not quickly make new friends, and those you have made do not easily dismiss them." Of course, also the philosophers were very fond of the topic of friendship. Plato, for instance, was convinced that there is no better, let's say, no better basement for a political society than the friendship between the citizens. He considered friendship to be the very bond of the citizenship, such like the Athenian one. And there's one beautiful word of him which became a kind of proverb even in ancient times, and it goes like this: "More precious than all goods is a reliable and virtuous friend." And his pupil Aristotle dedicated one very important treatise, one part of his Nicomachean Ethics, to friendship, and he wrote, "Friendship is one of the most indispensable requirements of life. For no one would choose to live without friends, but possessing all other good things." One last quote from the philosopher in ancient times was called the philosopher of pleasure and joy, Epicurus. He lived nearby here in a garden outside of the city walls of Athens, where he had established a community of people living there like in a kind of Indian ashram, and they shared their life together, and they considered friendship to be most important. Epicurus wrote, "Of all that wisdom has in store for all life happiness, by far the greatest is the gain of friendship." Well, perhaps you wonder that these were only quotes by male authors. This is due to a very simple fact. There is little literature, how do you say, transferred from female writers, even though there were some of them. Most famous is the ancient Greek poet Sappho from the island of Lesbos. She wrote beautiful poems, but not that much on friendship, more on erotic love. This was, so to say, the main topic of the female writers in Greek antiquity. Friendship was more or less considered to be a thing which was cultivated in male societies, mostly because they had constant warfares, and in, let's say, amongst soldiers and warriors, friendship was considered to be very, very important. Well, this is one of the reasons why. There are also some philosophical essays on friendship written by female authors from the community of the Pythagoreans, but this would be a talk on itself. It would lead us too far. But I just wanted to make the remark that there is some, let's say, consideration, some philosophy of women as well in ancient Greek society, but we have little quotes from that tradition. Well, the ancient Greeks, some, let's say, speciality about them is that they did not only want to practice friendship, they were not satisfied with merely, let's say, observing friendship and by merely experiencing friendship. They also wanted to understand. And this is one of the reasons why philosophy was partly, at least, born in ancient Greece. People wanted to understand, and therefore it was the ambition of the ancient Greek philosophers to, let's say, clarify the mystery of friendship, to shed some light into the enigma of what really makes friends to be friends. And this is very characteristic for the ancient Greek mindset, which I would like to call the humanistic approach. Because the ancient Greek philosophers, they were convinced that in order to find criteria how to arrange the personal, individual life and also the political life of a community, it takes to understand the general principles of life itself. This is, so to say, the classical Greek approach towards human existence. They wanted to understand the very virtues of human life because they supposed that by this it would be possible to set the signposts which are required to perform and manifest a good and virtuous life. And as friendship was considered to be a major virtue of human existence, the philosophers focused on the topic of friendship. As mentioned before, it was Aristotle who was very much engaged in that topic and who dedicated 2 treatises of his book on the Nicomachean Ethics that it is called On That Topic. And I think that Aristotle's theory of what I call his theory of a threefold friendship is really helpful to understand a bit about the mystery of friendship, and by doing so, to cultivate friendship within our personal lives and, of course, within our community as Argonauts. So, the Aristotelian idea is that we can understand friendship by referring to a kind of triangle structure. The idea of Aristotle is that friendship of any kind, and we will soon see that there are different kinds of friendships that he discerns, that any friendship is based on something that the friends do have in common. So there's one friend, there's another friend, and there's something in which they meet. So we can say that friends in the Aristotelian understanding of friendship are always friends in something. Now, as a matter of fact, what is interesting is to differentiate these different places or these different common topics in which friends can be made or in which friends can meet each other. Aristotle, as mentioned before, discerns 3 different kinds of friendship, which are defined and identified by the different things that the friends can do have in common. So in his opinion, there are 3 different sources which cause friendship. The first one, and this is a bit difficult to understand, and I will explain it later on, is there are friends who meet each other in their quest for the good, for good life, or as the ancients put it, in virtue. Other friends meet each other in what Aristotle called torchresimon. This is the useful. These friends are connected with each other because they consider themselves being useful for their own purposes, for their own business, for their own interest. And he discerns a 3rd type of friendship, torhedu. This is a friendship which is caused by common, by common things, by things that people share, because it brings fun to them. So let me explain this a bit more in detail. So the first type of friendship, as mentioned, are those who are friends in fun. So I think all of you can remember some of your friends who are friends in fun, friends which share, let's say, the same idea of what causes pleasure. Probably your friends like the same activities as you do, such as sports, music, dancing, drinking, or whatever grants you pleasure, going to concerts together, going to sport events together, or doing whatever you want to, playing together. I mean, these are friends, of course. These people share a similar taste, and therefore they like to spend their time together, and by doing so their friendship is fostered step by step. This kind of friendship, Aristotle argues, however, will last only as long as you share your sense of pleasure. For instance, when you have a hiking friend with whom you hiked all through the American national parks or the Appalachian Trail, And from one moment or from one year to the others, you lose your interest in hiking. This friendship, even though it was a very sincere, powerful friendship, may lose its common basement, and so you will go on different ways. That's quite normal, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is the first kind of friendship that Aristotle identifies. Second type of friendship is called the friends in utility. So partly you will have friends, or your friends will be those who suit your interests and your ambitions. So Aristotle gives some examples for this kind of friends. Partly these kind of friends are those who we call our business friends. We make business together. And through making business together, we get familiar with each other. We have a common interest. We want to make profit together. That's fine. And through this, there will be some tough bonds linking us. Or we have the same political interest. In German, we have the nice word Parteifreunde. Friends who share the same party, you know? And even though sometimes we smile at this because we are not sure whether these guys are really friends, from the Aristotelian perspective, they are friends because they share a common political interest, and through this, they are tied to each other. So these kind of friends meet each other and support each other in order to follow their targets, in order to execute their agenda, and through this they become friends. But however, this friendship will not endure that much as well, because in the moment in which you will change the party, or in the moment that another business comes up to your agenda, probably this friendship will fade away, because now you have lost your common interest, you have lost your common intention, and therefore the basements, the fundaments of your friendship, they are not existing anymore. This is different when we come to the third type of friendship, which Aristotle calls the friends in virtue. And Aristotle was convinced that this third type of friendship is the perfect form of friendship. And I would like to give you a quote from Aristotle, so that at least one time or probably two times this morning you will hear one of the ancient Greek philosophers in the original voice. Aristotle writes, "The perfect form of friendship is that between the good and those who resemble each other in virtue. For these friends wish each alike to the other's good in respect of their goodness, and they are good in themselves. But it is those who wish the good of their friends for their friends' sake who are friends in the fullest sense, since they love each other for themselves and not accidentally, in brackets, as those do who are friends in pleasure or friends in business. Hence, the friendship of these lasts as long as they continue to be good, and virtue is a permanent quality. Therefore, this kind of friendship will last forever." So let's try to make some sense of what Aristotle wrote in this paragraph. What he actually wants to say is that perfect friendship obviously is a friendship for goodness' sake. And friendship for goodness' sake refers both to my own goodness, or in ancient terms to my own virtue, and to the goodness and the virtue of those who I consider to be my friends. So the perfect friends commonly yearn for goodness both for themselves and for each other. So we can also say that their strongest desire is to perform virtue, to be virtuous human beings. And they want this both for themselves and for their friends. This is, in Aristotle's understanding, what really keeps friends together as lifelong friends. These are the ones he considers to be the true friends. One more quote from Aristotle, which helps us to understand why Aristotle was convinced that this kind of friendship is the most enduring one. He says,
and each of the friends is good relatively to his friend as well as absolutely, since the good are both good absolutely and profitable to each other. And each is pleasant in both ways also, since good men are pleasant both absolutely and to each other. For everyone is pleased by his own actions, and therefore by actions that resemble his own. And the actions of all good men are the same, or at least similar. Such friendship is naturally permanent, since it combines in itself all the attributes that friends ought to possess. Such friendship is naturally permanent, since it combines in itself all the attributes that friends ought to possess. So what does it mean? It means that this kind of perfect friendship somehow comprises all the other categories. For those who are friends who meet in their common yearning for the good, will be mutually useful for their purposes, and they will also experience lots of fun and pleasure together, because the good ones generate pleasure mutually. This is a major idea. So given this, we can try to visualize the thought of Aristotle by what I call Aristotle's tripartite friendship map. So this is meant to explain what I mean when I say that the perfect friendship of the good ones, of the virtuous one, that they somehow comprise the other categories. Those who execute a friendship which is based on the quest for good, they will also share their interests and will be mutually useful to each other, and they will also have a common source of joy and pleasure. And this is the reason why this is a perfect kind of friendship, because it comprises the other types of friendship as well. So to resume. According to Aristotle, we can differentiate these three different kinds of friendship, and doing so, it is important to emphasize that each of it is precious and necessary for good life. So Aristotle never make a difference, a moral judgment, that he says one kind of friendship is morally better than the other one. No, they are all authentic types of friendship. The only difference between them is that the range is a bit broader when it comes to perfect friendship. But each kind of friendship is needed to be cultivated in human societies and communities, such as the Argonauts. And therefore, I want to encourage all of you to, let's say, perform all these kinds of friendship, and to make no difference whether it is a friendship based on mutual interest, on common pleasure, or on our common quest for virtue. But the more we will become cultivated in being companions and friends on board of the Argonauts, the more we will definitely direct our friendship towards the perfect form, about the one that for Aristotle's understanding is the perfect type, because it comprises the other types of friendship as well. Well, so much for Aristotle's model of friendship, which I really think is quite helpful to gain or to offer us a kind of deeper understanding. But nevertheless, I would like to dive even a bit deeper to get a still more profound understanding of what friendship actually is. So I suppose we need to conceive the deeper layer of Aristotle's argument, for by doing so we shall gain a deeper understanding not merely of friendship but of human existence in general, and through this to gain a viewpoint by which we can see why and how friendship is required both for good life, for individuals and communities. And doing so, we can also realize what we need to make the Argonauts a strong and powerful community of good friends, and even more, of great human individuals. So, we heard about three different kinds of friendship so far. Now I would like to add a fourth dimension of friendship, and by this we will leave Aristotle behind, and we will talk about what it requires to be human, or what it means to be human. From 4 back to 3. In my own philosophy, I have to confess, I used to discern 3 different dimensions of human existence. And to understand what characterizes these 3 types of friendship and how they relate to each other, we actually need to understand what it is all about us as human beings. For these 3 different types of friendship we were told about through referring to Aristotle, they are based on what I call the 3 different dimensions of human existence. Therefore, understanding these different dimensions of human existence help us to understand the 3 kinds of friendship and the 3 different dimensions of friendship. So what do I mean? Now comes the philosophical part of the whole thing, so I hope you can concentrate a little bit. But in order to explain this, I want to refer to a simple image, namely the image of a cube. Because probably you remember your math lessons at school in geometry, when you were taught about the different dimensions we need in order to construct or to analyze a geometrical figure such as a cube. You know, when we turn to a cube, in order to understand what a cube actually is, we need to reaffirm the 3 different dimensions of a cube. Only by doing so we can fully capture the essence, what it takes to be a cube. Well, first dimension, probably you remember, the first dimension is a line. Whenever we try to construct a cube, and when we try to sketch it on a sheet of paper, the first thing we need to do is to create a line. Without a line, it's very difficult to construct a cube. So this is the first dimension of the cube. It is the line. Through 4 lines, or by sketching 4 lines, we can create the second dimension, which is the square. The square is, in the end of the day, we shall soon see the surface of the cube, but it is not the cube itself. Because in order to create a cube, we need 6 squares, and through 6 squares we can finally construct a cube. And you all have, let's say, some piece of paper in front of you. It looks like this, and I just take it in order to illustrate what I'm talking about. This is the second dimension. But by taking these 6 squares and organizing or rearranging them in this way, you will have a cube. Later on there will be time to construct your own cubes, therefore we have scissors and glue sticks in front of the table, because you are invited to construct this cube and to take it as a reminder with you, as a reminder of what real profound friendship in 4 dimensions is. But I will come to this later on again. Now, I think all of you understood what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the 3 dimensions, correct? Or is there any question? No, you're brave pupils, I know that. Excellent, great. So I can make a further step and try to transfer the idea of the 3 dimensions to human existence. For my hypothesis is that we humans, similar with cubes, we are more dimensional beings as well. But not only 3-dimensional, but even 4-dimensional. In order to conceive what is meant by a 4-dimensional mode of human existence, we are well advised to focus on what I would like to call the different modes of our human consciousness. For this is something unique about humans. We are the conscious ones, you know. We have the capacity to refer to ourselves. This is what consciousness actually means. We can refer to ourselves. But we can refer to ourselves in very different ways. And the first way, the most simple way, corresponding with the construction of the line with the cube, is our body. When we refer to ourselves, it is very common that we refer to our body, because it's quite familiar to us to say, well, look at me, that's me. Me is my body. So we can call this our physical consciousness. We refer ourselves to be as a physical being which is incarnated in a body. So, just to give you an example for physical consciousness, sometimes we are almost nothing but physical pain, for instance, when sitting on a dentist's chair. But partly we are only physical joy, for instance, when making love with our beloved partners. Sometimes we are both pain and joy at the same moment. You know, I've been a long distance runner, and when running a marathon up from kilometer 20, there's a strange mixture of joy and physical pain, but there's nothing else on the screen of your consciousness. So you are, let's say, 100% captured by your physical consciousness without any other dimension. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is our human existence, but it's simply a little bit undercomplex, because we are not merely one-dimensional beings, as for instance possibly lower animals are, but we are 3- or 4-dimensional beings. But nevertheless, the basic dimension of human existence is corresponding to the line of the cube, our body. So we can say that we are always a bit more complicated, but let me try to explain. What is that we perceive when we look at ourselves, when we direct our consciousness to ourselves? Whenever we do so, and we talk about it, we start the sentences that we build by the word I. I am doing this. I have a laptop computer. I have a wife. I am a member of the Argonauts community. This is a way that we usually commonly refer to ourselves. But what we actually do is that by doing this and by talking about what we consider to be, we are talking about the surface. Look at this. About the surface of ourselves. We share the self-image we have. Or to put it in other words, we are talking about our selfies, the pictures that we have ourselves and which we usually identify with. But what we can easily learn from the image of the cube, our surface is not identical with the cube itself. It's nothing but a surface. It is kind of a superficial image we have of ourselves, and to use a term from psychology, we can call this our ego. And as mentioned before, this is the most common way of relating to ourselves. And whenever we do so, we tend to define ourselves by what we consider to be our own, our possessions, our opinions, our convictions, our purposes, our intentions. Through all these factors, the self-image, the selfie of ourselves is generated. And we identify with our possessions, with our visions, with our history, with all the things we consider to be our own. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a very normal, usual way how to refer to ourselves, and we can't help doing so. But we should always be aware of the simple fact that our ego is just a surface. It is a picture we have, but it is not the thing being pictured by the picture. It is the surface of the cube, but not the very cube itself. So we can say that our ego is not our own very self. And therefore, we have to consider that we are three-dimensional beings and not merely flat two-dimensional ego surfaces. Is that conceivable? Excellent. So we are ready to upgrade, because now it's time to go one step beyond our, let's say, our daily common kind of consciousness, now we can consider that there is something underneath the surface of our daily routines of the ego we usually identify with. I can give you another image for what I'm talking about right now when I'm talking about the sphere of our true being. And this works a little bit better in German because there's a kind of phonetical similarity between what I'm talking about now. Because the third dimension I would like to present to you is what I would like to call soul. And soul in German is Seele. And in German we have a word which is very similar. It is See, a lake. And this is quite a nice image because, let's say, the relation between our ego and our soul is similar to the relation between the surface of a lake and the lake itself. By swimming merely on the surface of a lake, you hardly know what a lake really is, because you've ever only seen the surface. But a very fascinating thing, when you are snorkeling or diving and you have one of these special glasses on, just by a very simple movement of your head, you can enter from one dimension to the other one. And suddenly you realize that underneath, wow, there are fish, there's aliveness, there is a complex universe you had no idea of while swimming on the surface. And of course you will see some mud and some old car tires down there in the mud. And this is part of the reality of the lake as well. And the same is true when you dive into the lake of your own soul. There's a lot of mud down there. Probably it's better not to stir it up. It's part of your existence and it is powerful. So therefore, I would like to invite you to deep dive into the depths of our profundity, of our own reality beyond the surface. And as I told you, I would like to call that sphere, that third dimension of our existence, our soul. Of course, there are different words. The ancient Greeks called it psyche, and the modern psychologists use the same term in order to describe this dimension of human existence. But as mentioned, I am, let's say, I'm fond of traditional old words such as soul, and therefore this morning I would like to use this term. So, guess it's all about soul, as Billy Joel once put it in one of his great, wonderful songs. So, what is soul? Soul is what we are, whereas the ego is what we have. This makes a huge difference. Usually we identify ourselves with what we have, or at least what we consider to have. But soul is about what we are, even if usually on our daily routines we are not aware of it. So, for instance, these are our repressed feelings, somewhere down there in the mud of our soul lake. Sometimes these are our concealed traumas, or even our denied relationships. It's the things we don't want to see on the surface because we do not like them. But nevertheless, this is part of who we really are, and therefore it makes sense to, let's say, to integrate these aspects of our complex existence on our surface and in our consciousness on the third dimension. So soul is what we are, not unlike our ego, what we merely want to be. But there's one other very important thing about what I call soul. I consider soul to be the very source of our aliveness. The ancient Greek word psyche is better translated by aliveness than by soul, because what actually dwells there underneath the surface of our daily consciousness is, let's say, the real potentiality of ourselves. So we can say that soul is the well of our potentials. It comprises our slumbering abilities and our qualities. It is the treasure of our creativity which only waits to come up to the surface like a bubble rising up from underneath, to pop up there and to open new horizons for us, or to invite us to do acts we've never done before, to let the old ways die. So we can say that soul is actually the very source of our aliveness, and without referring to the depths underneath our ego surface, we will hardly ever be in the position to evolve the potentials of being fully alive. To be fully alive requires all the four dimensions. We are well advised to be aware of our body, of our ego, and of our souls. For only by doing so, we can really, to put it in a metaphorical way, we can really dwell within the cube of our individuality and to crash the surface of our ego, to dive deep into our inconvenient truths. And when we do so, we are even in the position that we can explore that three dimensions are not enough, that there's in fact a fourth dimension. There's a fourth way how we can refer to ourselves, a way that is almost forgotten in our modern Western societies, but this is a kind of approach to ourselves which was very familiar in the traditional societies, such as the ancient Greek ones, because they had more knowledge about the fourth dimension I am talking about. What is the fourth dimension? I will call it the dimension of spirit. Spirit is a strange thing, and we hardly have the right words for it. But I would like to try to explain what I mean by referring to it in that way. The spirit is not something inside of us, as we usually think. Spirit is far more something that surrounds us from everywhere. We are in the spirit. So the spirit has always been, let's say, referred to by the image of the air, even by the words the ancients used. Pneuma in modern Greek, is a word which means both spirit and the breathing. The same is true for the Latin word spirit. Spirit is also the air that we breathe. So spirit is something that is actually all around us. It is always there and it nurtures us, but nevertheless it is invisible. And usually we are not aware of it, as we are not aware of the air that we are breathing, even though it is absolutely necessary for being alive. But sometimes there's a storm or there's a wind going on out there, and then we can feel what is permanently present but usually ignored by us, and the same is true for spirit. When the spirit blows, we will become aware of it. And the blowing of the spirit, in my understanding, is what we call inspiration. When we feel inspired or when we are enthusiastic about something, remember yesterday I was talking about being enthusiastic, then we can experience the presence of a spirit which urges us onward, which inspires us for creative action, and so on. Given this, we can differentiate the four different dimensions of human existence, and again I try to visualize it by means of the image of the cube. We are complex, multi-dimensional human beings, and we are physical, we are egoistic, not in a negative sense. We are always focused on our ego. We are soulistic, this is a new term I invented, and we are also spiritual beings. We are all of that, and what we call enthusiasm. So we can say that when we are inspired, it is not our ego's merit, but it is a gift from that fourth dimension we call the spirit, and that was visualized by the ancient civilizations in the images of their gods or the spirits they worshipped. These were always kind of metaphors or poetical condensations of the reality of the spirit. And the amazing thing is that when we are moved by spirit, we can realize that we belong to each other, that we belong together, that we are connected in spirit. And therefore, we can now identify a fourth type of friendship, what I would like to call the spiritual friendship. They are friends in spirit. They are friends who are rooted in something that is much bigger than their own identity, which is even bigger than pleasure, than utility, than virtue. It is something that comprises all of us. And it is exactly that dimension of our existence through which we can be inspired and enthusiastic. And therefore, it is something that the ancient Greeks called divine. So there is a kind of divine friendship. The spiritual friendship in the fourth dimension is a divine friendship, and it also comprises the three different types of friendship I was talking about, which were discerned by Aristotle. So now we get a kind of holistic picture of what human friendship actually really is. It is a friendship which exists in more than only 1, 2, or 3 dimensions. It's a kind of 4-dimensional friendship. Just to sum it up, there is a friendship of shared joy and physical happiness. This is friendship on level 1, which is related with our physical layer. It is about shared joy and happiness. It is about common pleasure and avoiding physical pain. It is about shared kicks of dopamine and oxytocin, as the physicists put it. There's, on the second level, the friendship based on shared ambitions of the ego. It is about utilizing and utility. It is about shared pursuing our interests and intentions. It's about promoting our opinions and convictions, and there is nothing wrong with that. But nevertheless, there is a third type of friendship, the friendship of level 3, which is about the growth and the beauty of the human soul. These friends support each other by unfolding mutually their potentials, by commonly yearn for truth, beauty, and aliveness, and they don't care that much for themselves, but these kind of friends, they care for goodness. And there's that fourth strange kind of friendship, which is a kind of friendship with life itself. The friends on level 4 are friends of life. They cherish the world and they celebrate life and they discover the divinity of everything. So these friends in spirit will, what I would like to call, achieve the mastery of friendship on all levels of our human existence. They will experience physical pleasure in a most inspiring way, but they will also pursue their interests in business. They will live a free and playful life. They will connect in harmony and beauty, and they will be constantly aware of the divinity of the world that we all share with each other. So, masters of friendship, dear friends, this is what I wanted to talk about, because this is exactly my vision of the Argonauts community. How about visualizing our community as a community of masters of friendship, of humans who unfold the whole potential of friendship in all levels, and who through this experience and unleash the internal and external aliveness as part of a community of brothers and sisters in spirit. What kind of spirit? Well, I would like to call it the spirit that is all around, the spirit of aliveness. Probably you found the word in one of the publications of the Argonauts community. Well, I come to conclude, and now I just would like to shed some light on the mystery of this strange sheet of paper that you have in front of you. Because now we will talk about the guides who will probably guide us to become masters of perfect 4-dimensional friendship. And this is the reason why I brought that cube with me. And if you like to, and if you want to have some exercise, you can take the scissors and the glue sticks in order to create your own cube. And while doing so, I will try to explain the pictures that are printed on that. Probably you already realize that these are pictures of the ancient Greek gods. And this is for one simple reason, because I think that these spirits will be the ones who can support us on reaching the different levels and to become masters and champions of friendship. So they will probably guide you on your path to flourishing aliveness and to become member of a community of people being fully alive. So this will be your reminder, and I would like to invite you to take the cube with you, to put it on your desk at home, to remind you of what friendship actually is and what is the very treasure of the Argonauts community. First picture is the goddess Aphrodite. Most of you know her because Aphrodite is the goddess of beauty, is the goddess of love, and she is the one who matches the mates in pleasure. The ancient Greeks considered her to be nothing else but radiant beauty and the pure incarnation of attraction. In other words, she is nothing but a plain and pure promise of pleasure and joy, and therefore we can relate her to the dimension one, the physical dimension. Then you find Hermes on your cube. Hermes is the god of business. He is the god of fortune and mobility, and therefore he matches the mates in interest. The ancients considered him to be the divine custodian of joyful profit-making. He is the one who grants joy and benefit and profit to human beings, and therefore he is the one who has to be consulted by business people who long for success in business, for profit and benefit. Hermes refers to the second dimension of human existence and of friendship, for the friends in interest. Third one is Apollo, the god of harmony and virtue who matches the mates of mutual inspiration. Apollo is the one who loves harmony and who ensures that everything is integrated and well-fitting to each other. Therefore, he used to be described as a kind of musician who creates the beautiful music of harmonious life. And therefore it is Apollo who urges the people to live in the truth and to fulfill their very being. Those of you who will accompany us to Delphi will start a pilgrimage to the major sanctuary of Apollo, the place where the idea of living in harmonious life was promoted through all ancient Greece. The fourth spirit, which is important to guide us to be fully alive, is Athena, who we were talking about yesterday, because she is a goddess of intuition and awareness, and she is the one who matches the mates in spirit. With her bright eyes, Christina were talking about it this morning, she is the very epitome of spiritual presence and mindfulness, for intuitively she connects the humans to what is good and suitable in human existence. So, I would like to invite you to remember these four spirits as guides and guardians of what is required for the mastership of friendship. And through them we can leave behind the flatland of our conventional friendships and proceed to a profound one. And by this to join a community of enthusiastic friends. Now, these are only four surfaces of your cube. And as you probably noticed, there are two other pictures. And these are the pictures of Dionysus and of Eros. These spirits are mandatory as well to attain aliveness and the mastery of friendship, because they are the ones who urge us onward. They are the ones we need to go from one step to the other. to enter from one dimension to the other. These are the ones who make us make the movement with our head to leave the dimension of the surface and to enter into the depths of existence. About Dionysus, I already made some remarks yesterday, and I mentioned that he is the one who takes care of transformation and change. Sometimes this hurts, because in order to achieve new levels of our existence, we need to let die other aspects. And therefore, Dionysus was considered to be the master of catastrophe and of disruptions, because the ancients knew that only by disrupting our conventions, our usual patterns, our belief systems, and our, let's say, worn-out frameworks, we have the chance to get a deeper and more profound level of our human aliveness. And next to Dionysus, there is Eros, who I would like to call the power plant, because it is Eros who makes us fall in love. Eros is a desire, that's the way the ancient Greek philosophers put it. It is the desire to become fully alive. And this, again, on all the different levels of human existence. So Eros has a physical dimension, however, and this is about sexual passion. It is the fire of passion within us which makes us unite with other human creatures. But Eros is also active on the ego level, because he is the one who stimulates us to engage in partnerships and to make marriage contracts, for instance. But Eros is also there on the third level, because he is the one who connects us with like-minded people who are passionate about the good, the beautiful, and the true life. And finally, this is the way Plato put it, Eros is always there in the fourth dimension, because the erotic power within us doesn't rest until we intimately merge in spirit with reality itself. Now, we can talk about Eros later on, but now our cube is ready. The cube, which is a reminder of what, let's say, the mastery of friendship really means. What does it mean? It means to be fully alive, because through achieving profound friendship, that means on the dimension of body, ego, soul, and spirit, there's a space generated in which we can unfold our very potential. It is a garden of a spirit, it is a stage for enthusiasm, and of course, this is a platform for a strong community. And this is what is all about us, because you guess that I'm talking about the Argonauts. For this is exactly what I would like our community to be, a community appealing to the four dimensions of human existence, a community which is nurtured, fueled, and constantly energized and empowered by a common spirit, a community of passionate commitment, and a community of friends on any level. Well, this is what I wanted to share with you this morning. I hope I could give you some kind of inspiration, and I hope that, well, the spirit that inhabits me has switched to you, and hope you have fun with your cube. If I'm not wrong, now it is time for a coffee break. We will have time for conversation later on. And those of you who haven't finished with their personal work with the cube, there will be time enough to do so. But do it, enjoy it, and have fun. Now it's time for coffee.
So we now have a half an hour break. Coffee served in the next room, and then we will reconvene exactly at 1:45. Thank you very much, guys.
You are very welcome. Of course, okay. I will generate.
for active community. But I also think what's really interesting, and I wanted to ask you a question, Chris, before we proceed to the next part of the day, is when we think about our personal transformation, or the different stages of life. I'm actually going through one of those right now in my life, where this kind of thinking, this kind of methodology helps us also understand when actually friends no longer serve us, or maybe even the friends that we thought were friends are actually not friends, and when to actually gracefully let those friends go. Can you just quickly elaborate on sort of how the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, actually dealt sort of with the negative? I mean, friendship had such an important role in their thinking that how they dealt with the negative sides, like disappointment, betrayal, abandonment. Can you just quickly maybe elaborate on that?
Well, probably the threefold picture of friendship that I tried to sketch this morning may help us, because as for the first two types of friendship based on pleasure and friendship based on common utility, so to say, with them it's quite easy, because as mentioned before, there's nothing, I mean, it's nothing uncommon that we lose our friends because we lose the common platform on which we met. So there's nothing wrong with that. However, betrayal or things like that were always considered to be, let's say, kind of wise, because friendship was considered to be a virtue, and those who let's say, willingly hurt the spirit of friendship, they do something wrong. But this is something different from losing the common platform or losing the common field. However, when we talk about the friendship in the third dimension, which is about the common quest for the good, those who are attracted by seeing the good in each other and trying to support themselves in evolving their potentials to become ever better, those are committed in a much stronger way. And for those, let's say, hurting the spirit of friendship is something which really causes pain and trouble. There are stories about it, but there are also stories about reconciliation, because when you're really interested in each other, you will give your very best to save the friendship even though it has been hurt. But there's a lot of reflection, mostly by Roman authors, it's quite interesting, about denial in friendship and what makes you, or what could be a cause to end up with a friendship.
Well, thank you very much. So I think really great insight also for you to maybe contemplate and think about what level or dimension of friendship brings you to the Argonauts, and what level do you want to engage in. Also, maybe for those of you who are in circles, what does that mean when when we do our circles, we're in a two-dimensional world, but how can you bring that fourth dimensionality into the two-dimensional world? So some really interesting food for thought. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm actually going to hand back over to you, because I believe we're going to be doing a postcard exercise to our best friend. Oh, okay.
I would like to invite you for a brief exercise, and this exactly catches up the points that Nick just made, because I would like you to try to adapt the things that I was explaining in a very theoretical, philosophical way in the morning to your own personal life, to your own experience, and mostly to your experience with the community with our community, So I would like you to share a dialogue of 25 minutes with a person of your choice in the room. Probably it's your neighbor, probably there's someone you've already fallen in love with and you would like to talk with by now. But I think you are all adults. It will not be so much a problem to match each other. But what I actually would like to do is to invite you for a certain type of dialogue, which I was once taught by a Buddhist monk from Vietnam, who called it the deep dialogue. And it is a very simple set of rules. You find it on the chart down there. You will have 20 minutes time to discuss two questions. Not to discuss, to talk about them, what makes a difference. Question 1, please tell your interlocutor about your experience with the different types of friendship. So I would like you to reflect a little bit on what you heard on a high cruising altitude this morning to your own personal individual life.
So are there any experiences you made with these kinds of friendship? And it would be great probably to refer to your best friend, to remember who are really good friend of yours. I would like, and you're free to talk about what you want to, however, but these are, let's say, not commandments, but suggestions. Probably you will also talk about the question that Nick just mentioned. What can you do, or what kind of friendship do you want to cultivate in the Argonauts community, in your circles or wherever? So these are the topics on which I would like you to invite to talk about. And to do so, you have 25 minutes. Set of rules. First 7 minutes belong only to speaker A. For instance, me and Nikki, we will be a match. 7 minutes he will be talking, and I will give him 7 minutes open space to share his thoughts, whatever pops up in his mind. Oh, I just would like to tell you about a good friend of mine. Oh, and this brings me to an idea how I would like to cultivate friendship in the Argonauts community. 7 minutes. If nothing comes up to his mind, which is quite unlikely in this case, you will have 7 beautiful minutes of silence. And this silence is very powerful. The only thing that I have to do during his 7 minutes is to be nothing, one dimension number one, than an ear, listening, either to his words or to the silence. And I have to watch to take a look at the watch, because after 7 minutes I can say, now it's my turn. Then we change the roles. He will be listening and I will be talking whatever comes to my mind on these topics. Yes, it depends on where you go. You are free to go to the lobby or to wherever you want to go. You can stay here, but in the case that you leave that room, somebody has to take a look at the clock. And then you have another, what did I write? Another 10 minutes to share your impressions of what you've heard. Then we come back to our meeting. Does it make sense to you? This is 15 minutes plus 10 minutes, it's 25 minutes. 7 minutes.
Just take your chair a little bit, maybe into a corner, so you've got a little bit of space and privacy. Because it's always a little bit more of a tactical effort to try to get everyone back in the room when we lose time. So if we can actually possibly, or maybe into the next room, but where we have sort of access to you and we can still, get together quickly and reassemble. Does that make sense? Hands up. Is that okay? Okay. I love when there's no disagreement.
Excellent. So I wish you good, powerful conversations.
So find yourself a conversational partner.
Exactly. Find yourself a partner, and we will meet here again at 11:25.
Oh! There's more space here. We already spent till 2 o'clock in the morning. Ich habe den Ruhe. really interesting, I'd like to talk about is friendship. And to me, the Argonauts is by default connected to friendship because probably one of the most important friendships in my life brought me to the Argonauts. And so we're here to also celebrate the man who's actually made this possible, who I would refer to as my divine friendship, my perfect friendship. And with a lot of introduction. He doesn't need a lot of introduction. Amazing visionary, philosopher, creator of the Argonauts, the initiator. Would you please welcome Cielo Stefan.
All right, everyone. As you are finishing up the postcards, are they already? Everybody's done? Excellent. Because now we'll have a little change of venue. You know, the magic in life for any growth always lies out of the comfort zone. So right now the comfort zone is your seats and the setup of the tables, and we're going to change this a little. Little Dionysian disruption here just to start with. So I learned from the best. So will you please, and it's a practical reason too, because you hear this humming sound, we can't get it out, it's kind of the LEDs that interfere here. So we're making the best out of it, which means I would ask you just please stand up from your seat. Got it. Thank you. All right. I had 3 aha moments, and it goes way back to 2008. In 2008, Nikki and Franz Philipp were at the peak of our successes. We thought, masters of the frickin' universe. And especially I fell in that trap. That's a trap. That's a huge trap. And I had no idea I was in a hole, and it kept on digging. But first, we had great successes. And this was the first aha moment when we produced Planet Earth and premiered it. And something amazing was happening. We thought we were just producing a movie that we're bringing out that took off. No one expected that of a documentary. No one ever spent that much money on freaking polar bears. Everybody said we're gonna crash that ship and go bankrupt on it. But something happened that was different. And you heard it when we had this premiere, and premieres like this all over the world. A different conversation was starting. Different conversation of all the people that have ever seen that movie and the TV series and the combination thereof and saw it again and again. And it changes the lens. It changed a perspective. It changed the conversation. That was one aha moment. It was amazing, was highly fulfilling. But for me, it was just yet another project. I had no idea what was actually happening with me. And funny enough, this was the next aha moment. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the first Argonaut circle, the Badgers. And you might see a gentleman, right, 1, 2, 3 from the left, way back there, Kurt. We all came from the Tony Robbins world. We're part of this platinum program of his, and we said, okay, so how can we maintain this amazing feeling that we had? And we formed that circle of friends without really knowing where this ship was taking us, because it was a little ship. We just adapted the so-called form protocol from YPO and stuck to it more or less. A lot of free flow. The amazing thing was, again, something was happening. A conversation in my life was changing, but I didn't know yet quite what it was. It just was. And the value that was actually creating, I didn't know yet. But I was soon to find out with my third aha moment. Because that thing, Lehman was another US bank that we had all our assets in. And our balance sheet of our group of companies was somewhere in the billions at that time. Until that moment. So the summer of 2008, fantastic. We had amazing problems such as, what are we going to buy without all our success? And all of a sudden we were from way up there to way down. Somewhere in the negative tens of millions. I don't even know. Franz Philipp knows. You forgot. So all of a sudden we had to dug out of a deep, deep hole. But this wasn't a thing, this wasn't a project. This became a life journey. And a life journey where I noticed that I was living a divided life. I was living a life, a narrative that I was born into. A narrative that was brought to me. Well, everyone is getting born into someone else's narrative. Question is, when did I wake up? And what do I need to wake up to say, holy shit, when can I start creating my own? And usually it takes a big kick in the ass. Lehman's downfall and thereby ours, that was my kick in the butt. To see that divided life, that facing polarities, that believe that it's actually polarities, like thinking versus feeling, success versus fulfillment, knowledge versus wisdom, or heaven and hell, angels and demons, all these dualisms of our lives, that is actually a story. And interestingly, a concept that just doesn't work when you're being faced with the true challenges of life. I was noticing I was living a divided life. And divided insofar that I all of a sudden noticed, oops, there's actually a real boss that I'm serving. So meet who I believed at that time was my boss. It was that guy. The Homo economicus, Mr. IQ, knowledge, content-based. And it's funny because I come from this very liberal, cosmopolitan, secular European family of the 70s, where we're just non-dogmatic, we thought, non-ideological, and definitely anything religious or esoteric goes, ooh, no, we're different, we're open. No, we weren't, because we as a family, with our narrative, we threw the baby out with the bathwater, because we had no spiritual life whatsoever, no access to that. I never forget when my father bought he was very proud of it, his BMW that he always wanted to have, because we came from very poor upbringing. And then he tried I was like 12 years old, to convince me rationally why this car is better than the Mercedes. And he gave all the rational reasons. Horsepowers, number of doors, no, that wasn't it. A lot of factual reasons why. And me as a kid, I was already going, And I had something inside of me that said, that's my authority. My father is telling me, so that's got to be the truth. But something inside of me said, something doesn't feel right. Really? Is that a better? I don't know. I don't know about horsepowers. I tend to believe it, so I followed the narrative, but it didn't feel right. Because of course we know it's a purely emotional decision. But it took a long time until we actually had a scientist, Daniel Kahneman, who came up with this fantastic simple quote that we're all emotional beings and we use logic to justify our emotions, usually after the fact. So this Homo economicus comes up in various shapes and forms. Definitely logic. Only what you can measure in life counts, is real. That was my narrative. And believe it or not, there's a formula for the Homo economicus. Guess where it's from? Chicago School of Business. Surprise. And it's real. I mean, I can't read it because that's why I studied law and history, because it's fixed numbers. I need the engineers in the room to tell me what that is, but Wikipedia says so. So isn't that fascinating that we believe that engineers or economists believe that you can put humans, the human spirit, the human existence into a freaking formula? And kind of you can until life happens. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And you find a new formula. And the whole self-deception game starts all over again. The whole self-deception game of the Homo IQ, or the Homo economicus. Because IQ, well, can make you a real good athlete, an expert, but you're lonely. And not only lonely, you are alone. Alone on the stage. It's pretty much what every entrepreneur feels like, what every manager I've ever met in the C-suite usually, by default, feels like. Because that divided life is actually covered by the real boss. Meet that guy. Or guys, or archetypes. A whole Olymp of archetypes. Having a party. Up, dop, dop, doop, 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 he said. And that's the real boss. The lonely kid that wants to have an ice cream that feels not enough, not loved, that believes that just by having more, he or she can fill that void. That was me, hence the Homo economicus. Nothing but that kid in a grown man's body. And why is that so? Simple. I mean, evolution kicks in. We're just a bag of biochemistry, right? I mean, that somehow was brought up evolutionary. Or someone said we're compressed stardust in which a spirit resides. No idea where that quote is from, but I'll take it. But we're hardwired, literally, evolutionary speaking, to that little oldest part of the brain, the amygdala. That is hundreds of millions of years old. When we were still like this in the water, that was already there. And that is our default. The default is fear. And it's funny, I mean, who has seen a saber-toothed tiger lately? Last time I checked, not really. But our amygdala tells us, projects that the belief, the emotional belief that it is around the corner waiting to grab you and chew you up. So that is the default system that we come from. That's the default of the enough, not loved, afraid little kid. So we're basically having two states of mind. A below the line, a deficiency state, and above the line, a growth state. And then below the line comes from fear. Reaction. It's definitely reactive. We are reacting to the perceived danger. And when we are that, boy, it's all about me. Oh boy, is that all about me. Even though I can articulate, the grown man can pretend it's all about we, while emotionally inside, no. The boss, the real boss is actually ruling. And though we all thriving, we just want to be in that love state. And not just the physical love, it's the love of life, the aliveness. That's what we want to feel. We want to be creative, and we definitely want to be creative together. So, IQ, the one thing I cherished all my life, that I was told in my narrative, that this is what you have to do. It made me get, I don't know, 3 university degrees and licenses, and I still feel somewhat deficient that I never finished my PhD. Fascinating. Who has ever asked me that other than myself? But truthfully, just adding more knowledge, adding more content, while the container stays the same. What happens then when the container stays the same? And below the line, it can only stay the same. It's like taking the glass of water and just pouring more water in it. What happens? It just floods over. And we feel overwhelmed, literally overwhelmed. Great also in the corporate space. Just, hey, we give you a new license to LinkedIn Learning, right? There's 723,000 courses on it. You will become, you, Mr. and Mrs. Employee, will become smarter. So why are we still having problems? But where it actually happens is when we widen the container. And that happens above the line. That happens when the 2 next big intelligences of human existence kick in. EQ, emotional intelligence, and CQ, the collective intelligence. Because that's contextual knowledge. That is where wisdom is happening. So the what and the how, mastered in. Our iPhone works. Uber works. We can fly to the moon, fly to Mars, and become, what did Elon Musk call it? Interstellar beings or something. I love that. While we're ruining the planet, somewhere I didn't read the memo that what the real challenge actually is. Because no one answering the why. The what and how definitely is going to get us there, but without the why. And that was my situation back in 2008. I saw that I mastered in what and how that created world successes and lots of wealth. And it all crushed because it was not connected to the why. Because the why I thought I take also from the narrative that I inherited. But that's not. That's where I can get some of the what and the how. Definitely not the why. The why is in me. And all of a sudden, my badgers became my stronghold, my Argo ship, to find my own golden fleece, my fulfillment in life. And it's an ongoing journey. The problem is, that guy, there's a bouncer at the gates. That bouncer wants to have a secret code spoken to him in a secret language before he opens the gate to the above the line state, to the realm of wisdom, of inspiritment. I love that word. It doesn't exist in English, but it's the best explanation for the combination of enthusiasm, inspiration, and passion. So that bouncer, if not talked to the right way, decides which boss is going to rule. That one, the fear below the line, all about me based, not enough, or the happy collective intelligence, living life, being in the total kids flow. That is where true creation, true creativity is happening. But I can't get by the bouncer. Why is that? Well, our bag of biochemistry is somehow interfering in this. There's 6 human needs, as we all know, 3 deficiencies and 3 in the growth state. Same with human reward hormones that dock onto 6 human reward receptors, 3 below and 3 and above. And that correlation, by the way, although it seems like kind of obvious, the data that confirmed that is about 5 years old. That's it. And how that correlates and how that actually manifests in us is actually fascinating. Because only when all those neuroreceptors are in harmony, correlating with the psychology and biochemistry, neuroplasticity in the brain grows. And what correlates directly with growing or more flexible neuroplasticity? The feeling of aliveness. Or negatively speaking, if we don't have our neuroplasticity grow, we get depressed. So when you look at the depression rates in our society, the suicide rates, the fact that 20 plus something officially of the US population is taking pharmaceuticals, plus alcohol, plus nicotine, plus cocaine, plus. Well, neuroplasticity is growing less. And that's an empirical fact. Because we live in a deficient below-the-line world. Because the transactional, the mechanistic, the IQ-only world, only. It's not that IQ is bad, it's just the concentration of this is as bad as just concentrating on dopamine as our only kicker and testosterone, all below the line. Because it's deficient by design, psychologically and biochemically, leading to shrinking neuroplasticity, leading to us taking all sorts of compensation factors. So how do we get out there? And why do you think we're in Athens? Why do you think we're in Greece? Because those guys figured it out. It's absolutely fascinating. But we have to prove now with science, with empirical science, they already knew. That's what all Greek philosophy, all ancient Greek mythology is all about. To basically create this. And this is the remains of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi. And what was at the entrance, the main imperative of the god Apollo to people, to us? It says, Gnothi seoton, know thyself. Or, in Christoph's words, human, find out what it means to be human. But don't overdo it, because if you think you're a god, we're going to kick your butt. That's exactly what happened to me in 2008. Master of the frickin' universe, got my butt kicked. And of course, the Greeks have a great mythology for that. It's Eros. I was back on planet Earth while flying to the sun. Because I did not know myself. I did not know my own narrative. I did not know my why. The what and the how I was good in. Why? Not so much. And they called this, not knowing the why, the Titanic world, which had to be conquered by Zeus himself, a titan, to grow the Olympian world of gods, the above the line. And although Apollo only reigned for 9 months, and he then handed over 3 months to his brother Dionysus, who disrupted the order of Apollo for like 3 months. He was still an Olympian god because it was positive disruption. There's a huge difference between destruction and positive disruption. That's the constructive, the Olympian way of doing it. And of course, when we are in fear mode, we as a society, in total, not only just me, but everyone, well, what do we believe in? We want the strong man to save us. And that's when what we elect to the highest offices. Not seeing that all they're doing is promising us a false why. And we want to be made feel great again. What we actually just want is to appease the inner afraid child. Because humans, and that's beautiful by the Greek mythology, are not just object to a god. If we're just object to a god, no matter who we call God, be it a religious god or be it the god of money, it's never going to be enough. It can't by design, because the brain says so. The brain is shrinking and says to the body, hold on a second. I'm not growing here. What's happening? So, and then the saboteur kicks in and says, okay, so I'm going to do more of the same. And still the brain says not growing. So the brain gets depressed. Duh. Because we have to be subject with the gods, present. And whatever we call gods, it's completely irrespective of religion or any esoteric concept. This is biochemistry and psychology at work. We want our gods has to be life and nature, and we have to be in coherence with it. Then we become enthusiastic or entheosastic. Then we have God in ourselves, or the gods, or life. So becoming enthusiastic, there's a way. Because we are a conversational species. We're a species of essentially two things: conversation and belonging. And when we have in a safe space, in a space of trust and respect, the conversations that truly matter, the bouncer at the door is going to let us pass past to the above the line state. And becoming conversation fluently in a place of belonging, our trust circles, that is what they're designed to do. There's a little caveat though. IQ, the IQ space, content knowledge can be learned. The place of belonging, the above line, that must be earned. All this is a mental gym we're providing with a really great private trainer. But it's not going to be the 4 seasons that you book in. Because lifting, if a private trainer starts lifting the weights for you, and you wonder why your biceps is not growing, well, meet me. That was my belief system. Well, where can I check into enlightenment? Is there a website? So what does conversational fluency actually do? What it does is very simple. It harmonizes our inner world above with our outer. That's it. It's nothing but a harmonization. Biochemically speaking, it harmonizes all 6 reward receptors. Psychologically speaking, it harmonizes, or it gives access to the harmonization of all 6 human needs. And that is what all humans, independent of gender, be it biological or whatever, race, culture, age, we're all structured the same way. So conversational fluency, what does it mean? It means actually upgrading the human operating system. So to stay in a tech speak term we can relate to it nowadays, it is upgrading the human operating system. So it allows us to whisper into the ears of that fat, ugly monster of a bouncer, let us pass by. What does he want to hear? He wants to hear a secret language, he wants to hear a secret code, and it's actually a very simple one. The language of the IQ, the what and how we're all experts in our respective fields. And we always get to talk about what we do, and what KPIs we're meeting, and how much, and anything quantitative based, fantastic, we're all experts. And we know exactly that script. But the script to above line, ooh, it starts with something really difficult, no judgment. But I judge in the second I come into the room and see anyone. My inner system judges, because that's what we do, that's helped us, that's the evolutionary protocol to make to allow us to survive, is to judge, to find, okay, here's, because I had to survive. Where's danger coming from? That's why our evolutionary system inside allows us to judge, but that is the animalistic below the line instinct. That is the fear-driven inner child in us. The grown-up needs to overcome that. That's what I had to learn. And oh boy, when the shit flew high, my reaction was someone else's fault. I'm just a victim here. And I could judge everything and everybody, and when there was no one else to judge, I went to myself and say, well, then it's got to be me, poor me. I'm bad. So going there, no judgments, it's simple, right? Oh no. Oh boy. Because it comes with no advice giving. And here comes the German lawyer. What the hell? I can't give advice? Oh, I hate this protocol. Because it makes me feel so safe. When I can go like, you must. I can tell you, you must do. I feel really strong. I feel really safe. I feel good about this. The problem is, biochemically, it destroys trust. No, that's the psychological. Because biochemically, what does it destroy? A very fleeting hormone above the line, where above line starts, is oxytocin. And the second any sentence starts with you, just know oxytocin just went out of the window. And trust is broken. Literally broken. And it takes hours to get back. It's broken in milliseconds, and it takes about 90 minutes to build back, biochemically speaking. So that is what we're training, and that comes with a judgment and advice giving. And the next thing is vulnerable sharing. What the hell? Being vulnerable? Seriously? That was definitely not the script I grew up with. Because my parents, especially the war kids that they were, growing up in a completely destroyed country, and we know not only materially destroyed, but ethically, morally, emotionally, spiritually destroyed. They could not go there. They had to build up. And there's a great saying from a excellent researcher in that field of the war kids and the war grandkids, that's my generation, who said, well, the kids of war had to rebuild the ruins, whereas the grandchildren of the war had to rebuild the ruins of the soul. And that's, if you ever want to understand a war-stricken society, and especially Germany, why is there the German word angst, and why was it imported into the English language? Because of that mass trauma. And we could not vulnerably share. Learning that, boy, yeah, that's definitely a new protocol. And it comes with curious listening, really curious, with open heart. Not only open mind, IQ, no, open heart. Tough one. I had no bloody idea how that works. But I found out, thanks to the right environment, thanks to my badgers, thanks to the form protocol, Gestalt communication, all of that I slowly grew into. And the whole context around it, I finally got a glimpse of it when I met Christoph. And he held a speech with exactly that cube, and I said, what the hell, that is it. That's the context in which that protocol can live. And the second one is the secret code. That was the secret language. The secret code is, we are. What I call meta values. It's the meta values starting with Apollo's imperative, awareness. And we're adding to that the ability to respond. Because life is kind of happening always in the moment, in the space between impulse and reaction that we want to fill. But there it's happening. In that millisecond it happens. Are we filling it with just reacting instinctually? And that's definitely what we did in 2008, 10 then, when shit was flying high. We were just, oh my God, we were just reacting, trying to survive, total survival modus. We couldn't respond, and it's a great English word because it has two meanings, being able to respond and being able to take responsibility, being response-able. And do that with empathy. And empathy comes in various forms. It's love for yourself, love for the others, but more so finding a third space together to agree to enter into. That's the art of empathy. And when you look at this, we are the core algorithm of what the Argonauts about. The core algorithm for our methodology is about. That secret code that we whisper into the ears of the bouncer. It's dynamic. It's not a 2x2 McKinsey-like matrix, and doesn't fit any of the normal psychological assessment tools that we all know. You are box C2B1. Da, da, da. No, we aren't. I am right now in my archetype right now. Get my ex-wife in, you'll definitely see a different archetype. And add to that my mother, you see 5 other archetypes. And a lot of different boxes, which is why it's dynamic. And when we break through, oh my God, in the next second, we're looking at ourselves differently. And we're starting all over again. And for that, I have my trust circle, who provide and test and allow me a constant breakthrough to conversation fluency. And just to make sure I not only have one, it's my badgers and my Cassandra circle. So those two make sure that this one, the 5-year-old me, is as happy as in this picture, that I have the conversations that make me feel safe, loved, trusted, respected, make me feel whole, just through following that protocol. And I tell you, in the second I hear the you must, that guy hears his mother speaking and his grandfather, and his shutters go down. The grown man still knows how to do the protocol and can, from an IQ level, talk about everything, but my EQ me has just been hijacked by the unhappy him. So with these circles, with my Argonauts, we are true friends in virtue and spirit, just not hedonistically. Yes, it's great to have fun. Love that. Yes, it's great to do something together, but to be friends in virtue and in spirit, in the true CQ world, that is it. That's what makes us conversationally fluent. And oh boy, it is creating the base for the game changer. That simple conversation protocol, that simple place of belonging, it really is that simple and that hard and complex at the same time. But it's creating the base for the game changer, and that is the transformational expansion of our consciousness. And I must honestly tell you, when I heard this expanding consciousness, the German academic in me said, "Oh, really? What does that mean? Am I usually unconscious? And what then?" And then the psychologist says, "Yeah, but it's vertical development." So another buzzword. What the hell does that mean? Okay, my translation of that is actually a simpler one. It's IQ, where we become self-conscious. And we're excellent athletes in sport or experts in our field, great. To the time when we become self-authoring individuals, and we're adding to that the EQ thanks to the new protocol, because the IQ protocol we learned. Now we're learning the new protocol and the new code, and that makes us group conscious. And the funny thing is, everyone in sports knows that, and everyone who is a musician knows that playing individually on stage and in playing in tune and coherence with others in a band, completely different ballgame, but it's totally accepted. Kurt's presentation that I saw, I think 14 years ago for the first time, his job was to turn pirates into Spartans, as he called it. I love that. I still love that chart. Individual expert soldiers, but as Navy SEALs. Completely different thing. And this is the core of why we're calling it the Argonauts. It is about going from the me hero, the 50 Argonauts that assembled at the beach, now needed to get on a ship and needed to row in coherence, because otherwise the ship would not be fast enough to overcome all the adventures of the sea, to find the golden fleece, the metaphorical fulfillment, and bring it back and then cultivate it. That is why we're called the Argonauts. It's going from the me hero state to the group hero. And that doesn't come for free. And it's not booking into the 4 seasons. And the art of the game is then adding the CQ to bring that out, to cultivate it, to create more of that, to become system conscious. And that's really what it is. It's expanding consciousness. It's actually just harmonizing the three core intelligences of the human existence. And every psychologist and every neurobiologist will say, yeah, sure, duh. But how do you do that in our society? Because funny enough, we don't do it in economy. It's still the Homo economicus, Chicago School of Business thinking. It's all what is in it for me, instead of what is in it for us. How can we make this better? So, to go from a transactional ego to the transformational we-go space. So let's feel the difference, because you can actually feel it. This is what the transactional worldview of the Homo IQ only feels like. So that means, what is he going to say? That's what I grew up with, by the way. That guy that you just saw is what I grew up with. That it was classic, well, German TV, the same in other states. It was information, content, in a language that at that time only 7% of the global population spoke, and 7% is interesting because 7% is literally the amount of content our brain can compute, because 93% happens to be computed completely differently. So basically, the bouncer is not going to let us through. Not going to let us through. And how do we feel? Definitely not enthusiastic. There is no theos in us. But it was interesting information. Looked like the balance sheet I have to go through with my auditor. So let's see what the transformational and conscious worldview of the Homo Argonaut, which is full of purpose and meaning, feels like. Thank you.
Wow, what a talk. I can process a lot right now. But actually, we are a little bit over time. And we're going to go straight to lunch, because I think you actually would have another spot in 5 with me to further breakout. So we're going to do that after lunch or during lunch? Before that would be now.
Exactly.
That's
my
okay.
Now I will take the mic. Yes, this is a tough thing to do now, because dividing a group of Argonauts, it's quite a challenge. But it needs to be done, because otherwise we will not be able to execute our afternoon program. So what is actually going to happen now in the next hours? First thing, very important, we will have lunch together on the 10th floor of the hotel, and you are invited to go up there by the elevators right now, exactly in 3 minutes when I explain the rest of the day. And this is about our afternoon session. We will separate into 2 groups which will actually do the same thing but at a different time. Let's put it this way, Group A, yes, there are some quite fascinating things to see. We will have a guided tour, and our guide will wait for us at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock we meet down there in the lobby, and Group A will gather there in order to go for a walk for about 1.5 hours. Then the Group A will come back to the hotel, and the Group B will start the same guided tour to the Agora half an hour later. I think this will be at 4 o'clock. And then, nope, at 3:30, it's okay, immediately, Group 2 will start. Well, anyway, what's going to happen? Group A is going to have the guided tour to the Agora, whereas Group B will stay here in this room for a Dionysian experience of the first class. We will have a Greek dance lesson with our friend Kostas, who will come straight from Delphi to teach us Greek dancing. You know, the famous Sirtaki done by Alexis Zorbas in the world-famous movie Zorbas the Greek. You will learn this in the afternoon, and I promise you, because I know that guy, you will have lots of fun. So these are the 2 things that are prepared for the afternoon, either dancing or walking. And Group A first goes for a walk, then returns here to have the dancing lesson, whereas Group B will first have the dancing lesson, and then we'll go for a walk to the Agora. And later in the evening, we will meet again, all of us, to have dinner together. And do I need to explain where we have dinner? No, this will be done later on. The only thing that you need to know by now is whether you belong to Group A or to Group B. Stefan. It's simple. B. Everybody knows? You remember your letter? That's good. Okay, Group A will meet in the lobby for going to Agora. Group B at 2 o'clock. Group B will meet here for dancing lesson, and everybody goes upstairs now for lunch.
Ich dachte, das übernehme ich noch ganz kurz. Das funktioniert immer am besten. Ja. 1 oder 2, einfach diese Leute selber sagen, haben sie im Kopf. Ja. Obwohl, das heißt doch schon, dass